Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. One man, one lawnmower, one suburban war. When a quiet Saturday mow triggers a full-scale legal battle with a tyrannical HOA, he must fight for peace, privacy, and the right to cut his own grass. What started with a hum turned into a revolution. It was a Saturday morning, one of those perfect Arizona days when the sky is criminally blue, the sun is warm but not blistering, and the air carries just enough pine to remind you you're still technically in nature, even if HOA hell is creeping up. The hill like a slow-moving disease. I rolled up the garage door and pulled out my electric lawnmower, a quiet little beast I picked up 2 years ago, mostly because I didn't want to piss off whatever fragile neighbor moved in next. Ironically, I'd let the dude dry off the grass since 7, drank 2 cups of coffee, and read 3 pages of a woodworking magazine before I decided to get to it. Time, 11:03. I remember because I tapped my phone and thought, perfect. Not too early, not too hot. Let's make this lawn sing. I made one pass down the edge of the front yard, then another, setting those neat, overlapping rows that my perfectionist brain always demanded. The grass was green and thick, thanks to a lot of compost and sweat, and that soft humming motor was practically meditative. I was half listening to a podcast about Bauhaus design and considering whether to repaint my deck chairs when I noticed something weird. Out of the corner of my eye, a police cruiser slowed down by my driveway. Not in a casual, hey, cool lawn kind of way. No, it was a deliberate creeping crawl. Then it stopped. A second later, a white SUV pulled up behind it. HOA branding on the side door in that same fake cactus script I'd learned to associate with headaches. 2 people got out. Khakis, clipboard, visible smugness. I shut the mower off. It made a slight wheeze as it powered down. The silence that followed was way more unnerving. The cop, a guy maybe my age, stepped onto the lawn like it was a minefield. "Morning, sir," he said, his voice neutral, almost apologetic. "We received a call from the Cactus Hollow Preserve HOA. They reported a disturbance." I blinked. "Disturbance? You mean this?" I gestured at my lawn, at the mower, at the grass clippings. "Noise complaint," said the woman behind him, a tall brunette with a badge that read Community Compliance Officer. Her name, according to the shiny tag under that, was L. Wicks, and possibly a civil code infraction relating to public health and psychological impact. I stared at her like she'd asked to borrow my toenails. "I'm mowing my own lawn." Wickes didn't blink. "You began at 11:03. I was about to laugh genuinely when the second HOA rep approached, a shorter guy, pudgy, red in the face like he jogged 5 feet, and called it cardio. He was carrying an envelope. "We're issuing this as a formal notice of aggressive acoustic conduct and violation of residential peace standards," he said, practically panting. "Also, potential human rights infringement, depending on the response from the Environmental Comfort Coalition." "The what?" "Arizona Environmental Comfort Coalition," Wicks repeated, like that was supposed to mean something. "They handle neighborhood well-being standards for integrated residential clusters like Cactus Hollow." "I'm not in Cactus Hollow," I said it calmly, pointing toward the edge of my property, where my fence met a patch of oak trees and the very clear end of HOA jurisdiction. "This house isn't in your development. I bought it 5 years ago. It's a legacy parcel. You guys popped up after." Wicks smiled with all the warmth of a tax audit. "We're aware, but you are within our visual comfort radius. That extends operationally beyond direct membership, a doctrine established by the Cactus Hollow Covenant, page 7, Addendum B. It's about ambient harmony, visual and auditory." I looked at the cop. He gave me that tight-lipped, "Please don't put me in the middle of this" look and said, "Technically, your noise levels aren't above the city limit, but I have to respond when an HOA files a report." "A report for mowing my lawn." "Electrically," Wicks corrected. "Even electric tools produce harmonic intrusion, especially when unexpected." I felt my jaw clench. "It's Saturday, 11 in the morning. This isn't a monastery." The pudgy guy flinched. "We've had complaints. Elderly residents, a war veteran, a woman with a chronic migraine condition. Your activity was described as aggressive." "I was wearing headphones." The officer stepped slightly closer. "I'm not here to fine you, sir. I just need to confirm there's no ongoing disturbance and that you're aware the HOA has requested mediation." "Mediation," I repeated, deadpan. "Over a lawn." Wicks was already scribbling something onto a carbon copy pad. She tore the top sheet off and handed it to me. "You're now on notice. Repeated disturbances may result in further action, including referral to municipal civil review. I looked at the paper. It was an HOA-branded Community Incident Acknowledgement Form. No legal header, no citation. "This is meaningless," I said. "Not to the residents of Cactus Hollow," Wicks snapped, suddenly shedding the polite act. "You may not be one of us, Mr. Mason, but you are within our sphere. This community is built on serenity. We curate it. I didn't realize I needed your permission to cut my own damn grass." "You need our consideration," she said, and with that, she turned on her heel and left. The pudgy guy followed like a bureaucratic duckling. The officer lingered a second longer. "Look," he said, voice low. "Off the record, just document everything. I've seen these HOA disputes turn ugly. You're not breaking the law, but they're persistent." He tipped his head and got back into the cruiser. The whole procession backed down my driveway like a retreating army of the absurd. I stood there in the quiet. The mower was still parked, mid-strip, the grass halfway done. I turned around, walked back to the garage, grabbed my beer from the mini fridge, and sat on the front step. I cracked the can, looked at the half-mown lawn, and muttered, "Well, shit. They really have lost their minds." Sunday started off quiet, unnervingly so. After the circus of the day before, I half expected a marching band of clipboard-wielding HOA zombies to show up demanding I recite their bylaws while mowing blindfolded. Instead, I woke up, made coffee, sat out on the porch in my robe, and tried to pretend things were normal. They weren't. Around 10:30, my phone pinged with a new email notification. Subject line, "Community Environmental Concern Report. Action required." The sender, Arizona Environmental Comfort Coalition. I didn't even know that was a real organization. The logo looked like it had been designed in Microsoft Word, a faded saguaro cactus in front of a sunrise with Comic Sans font. I opened it and immediately felt my stomach tighten. The letter was worded like an official state document, but it reeked of HOA drama. It began with a cordial "Dear property owner," then spiraled straight into bureaucratic insanity. "A joint complaint has been submitted against your property, citing potential violations of Oral Peace Ordinance and Psychoacoustic Zoning Guidelines." Subsection D. They were accusing me, of something called unauthorized psychoacoustic activity. I kid you not. Among the list of violations: intrusive mechanical resonance during quiet designated hours, sonic encroachment into shared eco-harmony zones, unpermitted harmonic disruption affecting eldercare equilibrium. By the end of the page, I was halfway convinced I'd triggered a portal to another dimension with my lawnmower. They demanded that I cease all noise-producing outdoor equipment usage until a full evaluation could be completed. Evaluation by whom? HOA therapists with tuning forks. And then came the cherry on top, a link to a petition hosted on the Cactus Hollow Preserve website, "Open letter to restore neighborhood peace." Right at the top of the page was a photo of me, screen grabbed from my security camera footage, standing next to my mower, looking confused. The caption read, "Flagstaff man dismisses community trauma for personal aesthetic. Residents demand action." I scrolled through dozens of comments from people I didn't even know, many anonymous, others with fake-sounding names like Tranquil Mom, AZ'd, and Desert Vibes. They called me a threat to auditory wellness, a narcissist who mows for dominance, and my personal favorite, a rogue agent of mechanical violence. One claimed their grandmother had developed tinnitus from unexpected exposure to electric whirring. Another insisted their dog hadn't slept in 2 nights due to emotional anticipatory stress caused by the possibility I might mow again. And there, front and center, was a quote from none other than Karen Lasser, HOA president, self-appointed queen of suburban peacekeeping. "In Cactus Hollow, we believe in intentional living. Mr. Mason's disregard for community wellness is a form of sound-based aggression, and it will not be tolerated." I didn't know whether to laugh or punch drywall. By noon, things got worse. My phone buzzed with a notification from the Nextdoor app. Against my better judgment, I clicked it open. A new thread. "Noise offender on Ridgeline Road. Please report." Same picture, same energy. Only now, people were claiming they'd seen me revving up heavy machinery at dawn, which was a lie. My mower doesn't even have a rev. Someone else alleged I was testing drones in the backyard, and one brave soul declared I was intentionally sabotaging the neighborhood's spiritual vibrational balance. I'd officially been turned into a folk villain. I called my friend Anthony, who works in environmental sound consulting, and read him parts of the email. He snorted into the phone. They're trying to use soft zoning policies to justify hard overreach. You're not in an HOA, right? Nope. Then it's nonsense. But they're testing you, and they're going public. You need to fight back, Caleb. Post your own statement. And get a real noise report. Don't let them define the narrative. So I did. I grabbed my DSLR, shot a quick video from my porch, and uploaded it to YouTube. They called the police on me for mowing my lawn. Here's what actually happened. I kept it calm, factual, walked viewers through the events, showed the notice, showed my mower, read the HOA statements out loud, especially the psychoacoustic aggression part, which made even me laugh. Then I ended the video with, to everyone in Cactus Hollow, if you're that sensitive to quiet, being disturbed at 11 a.m. on a Saturday, maybe don't live near people, and definitely don't build a neighborhood next to someone who was here first. The video hit 20,000 views by midnight, and by then, someone had scratched the word aggressor into the side of my truck. A few days passed, and for a brief delusional moment, I thought maybe the madness had peaked. The video blew up. 50,000 views in 3 days, and while most of the comments were on my side, HOAs are a scam, mow louder next time. This is why I live off-grid. A small but shrill minority insisted I was the acoustic equivalent of a war criminal. Whatever, I could live with online noise. What I wasn't ready for was the kind that started humming outside my fence. It was Wednesday morning when I noticed the box. Not a package, a box. Mounted awkwardly to the side of my mailbox post, just beneath the security camera. It hadn't been there the day before. I was sure of it. It was sleek, matte black, with a single blinking green light and a tiny grill. I crouched down and squinted. No branding, no label, just quietly watching. Now, I'm not paranoid by nature, but I'm also not an idiot. I unscrewed it, brought it inside, and plugged it into my laptop with a USB cable. Took about 5 minutes and a call to Anthony, bless that man, to figure out what it was. A directional audio logger, motion activated, GPS tagged, logging decibel spikes. It had been recording my property line for days. Anthony helped me extract the data. The logs were bizarre, wildly inflated noise readings, spiking to 75 decibels for what should have been a 48 dB electric motor. One file even registered 93, and that's jet engine levels, during a time I wasn't even home. It was faked, or worse, manipulated. Then Anthony ran a search on the device's MAC address and linked it to a local security services contractor, Desert Vantage Compliance Solutions, a known partner of the HOA. A company that, according to its own website, helps homeowners associations monitor code adherence using remote telemetry and smart surveillance. Translation, they spy on people for HOA Karens with too much time and money. The worst part? This was done without any notice. No letter, no warning, just silent surveillance of my yard. I don't know what pissed me off more, the violation or the sheer arrogance of it. I posted the discovery online, another video, this time with proof. HOA, secretly spying on my property. I found their device. I showed the device, the logs, the inflated data. I blurred the serial number, but not the contractor's logo. By nightfall, HOA reps were scrambling. I got a certified letter from Cactus Hollow Preserve Legal Committee that was equal parts apology and threat. They claimed the device was part of a temporary neighborhood-wide sound study. Lie, accidentally placed beyond intended boundaries, bigger lie, and not in violation of any federal or state privacy laws due to its passive nature. Technically, true, but morally radioactive. The kicker, they accused me of tampering with official HOA property. They demanded I return the box. I mailed them a brick. That week, things escalated further. A local HOA-friendly blogger published an article titled "The Grass Isn't Always Greener: One Man's Crusade Against Community Standards." It painted me as an anti-social recluse with a grudge against peaceful integration. There was a blurry photo of me lifting the audio box, clearly screenshotted from my video, and the caption said I was dismantling protected infrastructure. I called my lawyer. Jenna Payton was calm, direct, and deliciously vicious. They're trying to build a public case for policy justification, she said, scrolling through the article while sipping her coffee. This is strategic slander. They're not just pushing you out of social circles. They're laying the groundwork to pressure the city. If they can label you disruptive, they'll make a motion to rezone your parcel. Can they even do that? Not easily. You're grandfathered in, but that doesn't stop them from filing complaints and inventing nuisance narratives. And with fabricated decibel logs, they might convince someone to launch a noise use review. A noise use review over an electric lawnmower. Meanwhile, more flyers appeared around town. Same buzzwords: eco-harmony, sonic stressor, neighborhood preservation. HOA reps stood outside the local farmer's market handing out leaflets with a grainy black and white image of my house under the headline, "This is why we need regulation." One evening, I spotted a drone hovering near the tree line. I grabbed my garden hose and gave it a good blast. It dipped, wobbled, then zipped away like a startled bug. The next morning, a complaint was filed against me with the city council, claiming I'd destroyed protected equipment during an HOA-sanctioned monitoring operation. I hadn't even scratched the thing. But now they were formally petitioning the city to declare my yard a zone of acoustic conflict. If accepted, it would let them prohibit mechanical lawn maintenance within a 200-foot radius, effectively banning me from mowing. That's when I knew this wasn't a petty grudge anymore. It was a campaign. By Friday morning, I had officially run out of patience and almost out of bourbon. I'd spent the past week being called an auditory anarchist on neighborhood forums, stalked by drones, painted as the suburban antichrist by HOA fanatics. And now the city was reviewing my property for environmental sound zoning conflicts, all for mowing my goddamn lawn. So I did what every pissed-off American with a target on his back should do. I lawyered up and hit back. Jenna Payton wasn't just a good attorney. She was the type of civil rights litigator that made HOAs soil themselves. Her office was minimalist, her tone surgical, and her patience for bullshit non-existent. By the time I finished my rant in her office, she already had a legal pad full of bullet points and case law references. "I love it," she said, flipping her pen in that unnervingly calm way. "You're not in the HOA. You have deeded independence. You've got surveillance, defamation, private intrusion, malicious zoning interference. They've overplayed their hand. We'll burn them." "Good," I said, "because I'm ready to pour gas." First, we filed a cease and desist against both Cactus Hollow Preserve HOA and Desert Vantage Compliance Solutions for unlawful surveillance and data manipulation. Then came the defamation notice to the blogger who'd published the hit piece. Jenna also contacted the city to demand a public hearing regarding the zoning complaint, invoking my rights under the Arizona Private Property Preservation Act. But that was just the warm-up. The real nuke? A multi-claim civil suit against Cactus Hollow Preserve HOA, Karen Lasser personally, Desert Vantage Compliance, and 2 members of the HOA board who had submitted sworn affidavits alleging consistent and excessive noise violations, occurring over multiple mornings. Our evidence: oh, it was a buffet. We had video footage from my security system showing I'd mowed for exactly 21 minutes. We had raw audio logs proving decibel levels never exceeded 52, which is quieter than some air conditioning units. We had metadata showing the tampered device had artificial decibel spikes pre-programmed by a third-party firm linked to HOA contracts. And the cherry on top, one of the HOA board members, someone named Mitchell Gray, a mid-tier accountant with a superiority complex, had accidentally sent an internal email to me instead of Karen. It read, "If we keep up pressure and keep him flagged, we might force him into compliance before July. The fence makes it too hard to spread influence. Let's push for noise regulation first." I forwarded it to Jenna. She laughed for the first time since I'd met her. "This email," she said, "is our golden goose." In parallel, Anthony, my audio-savvy friend, published a technical teardown of the surveillance device. He laid out how the equipment violated local telecom transparency laws and was pre-programmed to inflate readings beyond 65 decibels even in silence. It made the front page of our legal advice within hours. HOA fanatics swarmed in to defend their holy order, but they were drowned out by a tidal wave of anti-HOA veterans, audio engineers, and pissed-off homeowners with their own war stories. Then something unexpected happened. A man named Eli Navarro, who lived 3 streets over, deep inside Cactus Hollow, HOA dues and all, reached out anonymously via Reddit. Said he was sick of the cult behavior, claimed to have screenshots from the HOA group chat where Karen and her inner circle were discussing targeting fringe residents who resist standardization. His screenshots were glorious. Direct quotes from Karen, he'll bend or break. If not, we use the rules until the city takes over. I don't care if he's not a member, he's visible. That makes him our problem. Jenna reviewed the messages and lit up like a Christmas tree. Conspiracy to harass, coordinated civil targeting. This is gold. I was still angry, but now I had momentum. Now I had fire. That weekend, I made another video. They're trying to force me into an HOA I don't belong to. Here's what they did. I didn't rant. I laid out facts, showed documents, read from the affidavits, the screenshots, the zoning complaints. My voice was steady, cold, professional. The video hit 100,000 views in 2 days. Karen must have seen it because on Monday morning I found a new letter taped to my gate, handwritten. It read, "You've chosen escalation. Be ready for the consequences." No signature, just HOA letterhead. I stared at it, then laughed. Then I laminated it and framed it above my mower. The courthouse smelled like cheap coffee and old carpet, two things that don't inspire confidence, especially when you're about to go head-to-head with a suburban cult masquerading as a homeowners association. Jenna and I arrived early. She was in a tailored navy suit that radiated, "Don't waste my time," and I wore my cleanest flannel, not because I was trying to make a statement, but because I didn't want to look like I gave a damn what the HOA thought I should wear. The courtroom itself was a modest affair, a middle-tier civil court tucked between a DMV office and a sandwich shop. But to me, it might as well have been Madison Square Garden. I was ready for the fight. Karen Lasser walked in like she was expecting a red carpet, hair shellacked into some kind of blonde helmet, suit 2 shades too white for Arizona, and a face set into a permanent expression of "How dare you?" Flanking her were the 2 HOA board members who'd perjured themselves, and a nervous-looking attorney who already looked like he regretted agreeing to represent them. The judge, a man in his 50s with bags under his eyes and the voice of someone who'd heard every petty dispute in the state, opened with a sigh. "Let's keep this civil, folks." Too late for that. Jenna began with surgical precision. She laid out the facts with no drama, no flair, just a steady rhythm of evidence: the cease and desist, the fake sound reports, the surveillance device, the accidental email, the group chat leaks. She played a side-by-side comparison of the HOA's manipulated decibel logs next to actual audio from my mower. One sounded like a freight train. The other, a gentle hum, barely louder than a refrigerator. Karen squirmed. Her attorney objected on irrelevance, which the judge overruled with a bored wave. Then Jenna brought out the affidavits, sworn statements by the HOA board claiming I had been mowing multiple mornings in violation of community noise standards, sometimes as early as 5:30 a.m. She held up my security footage timestamps, which proved I hadn't even left my house until after 10 a.m. on those days. "Perjury," she said, not loudly, but with enough weight that the whole room seemed to tighten. Then came the kicker, Eli's screenshots of the HOA internal messages. Projected on the wall was Karen's now infamous line, "He doesn't have to be in the HOA to follow our rules. Visibility equals vulnerability." The courtroom went silent. Karen's lawyer tried to pivot, something about community cohesion and psychological impact, but the judge cut him off. "I've read the filings. You're arguing that a man mowing his own lawn on private property caused emotional distress to people watching from 3 streets away." There was no good answer to that. Karen stood up. She couldn't help herself. "We protect the quality of life for everyone in Cactus Hollow. He's a pollutant in our shared atmosphere. He undermines the tranquility we've cultivated." The judge raised an eyebrow. "That's an interesting choice of words. Is that how you referred to him internally?" Silence. "Let the record reflect the defendant is not a member of the Cactus Hollow HOA. Let the record also reflect that his property predates the establishment of said HOA by several years, and that the HOA, despite lacking jurisdiction, engaged in coordinated harassment, installed unauthorized surveillance equipment, and submitted falsified evidence to a municipal authority." Karen opened her mouth again, but her lawyer grabbed her wrist. The judge leaned back. "Ms. Lasser, your organization, which again has no authority over this man, has cost him reputation, time, and legal expense. You have weaponized bureaucracy in a way that frankly borders on obsessive." He turned to Jenna. "Counsel, I assume you're seeking damages?" "Yes, Your Honor." Full restitution for legal costs, reputational harm, and emotional distress. Any punitive. We'll let the evidence speak for itself." He nodded, made a few notes, and said, "Decision will be filed within 72 hours. But based on what I've seen today, I wouldn't expect a happy holiday season for the HOA." Outside the courtroom, Karen stormed past us without a word. Her face was pale, jaw tight. One of the board members looked like he was about to puke. Their attorney was already on his phone, probably Googling how to exit HOA litigation gracefully. Jenna turned to me and smiled. "You did good." I exhaled for what felt like the first time all week. "Think this is over?" "Not yet," she said, "but we just broke their spine." We walked out into the afternoon sun. It was quiet, peaceful, no lawnmowers, no drones, just silence, the good kind. 3 days later, the ruling came in. I was halfway through sanding a cedar bench in the workshop when my phone lit up. One notification from Jenna. "We won. Full damages. Call me." I didn't even bother wiping the sawdust off my hands. I hit call. She answered on the first ring. $675,000. I stopped breathing for a second. "You serious?" 100%. The judge ruled in our favor on every count. Unlawful surveillance, defamation, coordinated harassment, attempted zoning manipulation, and malicious misuse of municipal processes. He even added punitive damages after reviewing the HOA's internal communications, said their behavior bordered on sociopathic governance. His words. I sat down on the nearest crate and laughed. Not a joyful laugh, more like the stunned, hollow kind that happens when your brain needs a few minutes to catch up. Then she added, "Karen Lasser is facing criminal charges, wire fraud, false reporting, and a state-level charge for tampering with evidence submitted to a municipal agency. Her lawyer tried to negotiate down to probation, but the DA wasn't having it. She's being processed today." "Jesus," I muttered. "Oh, and Desert Vantage compliance is being investigated by the Arizona State Licensing Board. Their equipment violated at least 2 telecom regulations and 1 privacy statute. The city revoked their local operating license pending appeal." I let that sink in for a second, then asked, "What about the HOA?" Official warning from the Attorney General's office. "One more violation of private property boundaries, and they'll be recommended for forced dissolution." I hadn't even known that was a thing. Apparently, if an HOA is found to be operating in persistent violation of state law and outside its jurisdiction, the state can move to liquidate its governing structure and redistribute oversight to municipal channels. Basically, corporate death by paperwork. 2 board members, Mitchell Gray and a woman named Daphne Lynn, both of whom signed those fake affidavits, were officially suspended from their roles. They're now under investigation for perjury and obstruction. Karen, however, wasn't going quietly. That same afternoon, local news ran a segment outside the courthouse. Karen was in handcuffs being escorted into a patrol car, shrieking at the cameras. "They're ruining community integrity. He brought this on himself. This is about collective peace." I recorded it on my phone and played it back 3 times. I couldn't stop grinning. By the end of the week, the settlement check was in escrow. Jenna's fee was already carved out. I told her to take extra for the pain and public suffering of having to sit across from Karen Lasser in depositions. She smirked and said I should bill for emotional hazard pay. In the days that followed, the Cactus Hollow Preserve Board went full PR damage control. A mass email was sent out to all residents. No apology, of course, just vague language about leadership transitions and missteps in communication policy. Karen's name was never mentioned. The HOA office, a once immaculate little cube on the corner of Sonoran Drive, was now closed for restructuring. I drove by once. Someone had spray painted "Free the Grass" across the front in neon green. Not me, but I appreciated the sentiment. The city also held a public forum, part of the zoning review fallout, and I showed up just to listen. Turns out my case sparked something bigger. Several residents from other neighborhoods started sharing stories. Overreach, threats, fines for things like wind chimes and mailbox color. One guy from the east side got fined for leaving his garbage bins out for more than 45 minutes. Another woman was warned for planting unauthorized flowers. That night, someone jokingly suggested forming an anti-HOA coalition. By the end of the meeting, they weren't joking anymore. People were finally pissed. Not just at my HOA, at all of them. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe without looking over my shoulder. No new threats, no anonymous notes on my fence, no surveillance boxes. Just my land, my lawn, my tools, and the absurd knowledge that a lawnmower had triggered a legal reckoning. That weekend, I mowed again. 11 a.m. sharp. 2 cars drove by. One honked in support. The other slowed, gave me a thumbs up, then rolled on. No police, no HOA agents, no clipboarded drones, just me, the hum of the mower, and the knowledge that the empire of beige conformity had taken one hell of a hit. I'd thought winning in court would be the end of it. The kind of clean conclusion people imagine when they picture justice. Gavel bangs, checks are cut, bad guys slink off into obscurity. But real life, of course, doesn't work that cleanly. It never does. Even after Karen's arrest, after the HOA's slapdown and the media blowout, the ripples kept spreading. First came the HOA members who didn't take the loss well. Not all of them were rabid Karen loyalists, but a vocal minority saw me as the guy who broke their structure, the face of the rebellion. Some started avoiding me in town. Others made passive-aggressive comments at the coffee shop or glared from across the hardware store. One particularly bold man, guy in his late 60s with an HOA pin on his fleece vest, called me a lawn terrorist under his breath as I passed him in line at the post office. I turned, smiled, and said, "And yet here you are, still breathing." He looked away. Then came the support. People I'd never met before started showing up. Not at my door, thank God, but online, in messages, even in public spaces. A young couple from the north side stopped me in the parking lot at Home Depot just to say thank you. Said they'd lived under an HOA for years and felt like they were suffocating. Another woman, early 40s maybe, emailed to tell me her HOA fined her $300 for letting her autistic son play with chalk on the sidewalk. "You gave people permission to fight back," she wrote. "You made it feel possible." That one hit hard. It was strange, though, being seen as a symbol. I'd never set out to start a movement. I just wanted to mow my damn lawn. Meanwhile, the anti-HOA coalition started to gain steam. What began as a half-joke at the zoning meeting evolved into a real group. Monthly meetings, organized outreach, even a website, livefreeyard.org. Their mission was clear: protect homeowner rights, educate the public, challenge abusive HOA structures. I didn't join officially, but I consulted a few times. Helped them draft a sample HOA exit strategy for neighborhoods considering self-dissolution. The local paper did a Sunday feature on the fallout, titled "The Man Who Mowed Back." It was surprisingly balanced, even flattering. They interviewed neighbors, legal experts, and included a shot of me pushing my lawnmower with a dry, deadpan caption, "Caleb Mason, lawn owner and lightning rod." I printed it, framed it, and hung it next to the laminated HOA threat letter in my garage. Karen. She made bail, of course. Her trial date was pending, and her lawyer was spinning like a hurricane in a blender. She tried to claim mental distress from constant community tension, even filed a motion citing cumulative microaggressions from her HOA duties. The judge wasn't impressed. From what I heard, she moved temporarily to a house outside Sedona. Ironic, considering how obsessed she was with controlling this one. A few people said she might flee the state entirely, but I doubted it. Karen wasn't the fleeing type. She was the seething type. Cactus Hollow, it was bleeding. With the board in disarray and the city watching them like hawks, their grip weakened. Dues dropped. Enforcement stalled. Several residents filed for formal withdrawal, citing community disillusionment. Others just stopped complying with petty rules. One woman hung rainbow wind chimes on every window of her house and dared anyone to complain. No one did. For the first time in years, the neighborhood looked alive. As for me, I started fixing up the place. Not out of spite, out of pride. Painted the deck, replanted the hedges, built a bench at the edge of the lawn with a perfect view of the hills. I stenciled something on the side in small, blocky letters. Let them hear it. And every Saturday, at exactly 11 a.m., I mowed. Out of routine, out of ritual, out of stubborn joy. And if the wind carried that hum just far enough into Cactus Hollow to make someone grind their teeth, well, that wasn't my problem. It's been 6 months since the day the police showed up over the sound of my lawnmower. Sometimes I still replay that moment, standing there, sweating in the Arizona sun, holding an electric mower, watching a cop and 2 HOA enforcers treat me like I'd just committed suburban treason. Now, the grass is greener than it's ever been, but not because of some poetic metaphor. I just have time now. Peace, space, and for the first time in years, the quiet doesn't feel like something someone else owns. Cactus Hollow still exists, technically, but it's changed. The HOA is down to 3 board members, and all of them are too busy covering legal ground to worry about wind chimes or lawn edges. Karen's case is still pending, delayed for the 3rd time, now buried under motions and procedural backfires. Her lawyer's trying to argue that HOA harassment wasn't criminal, but philosophical conflict management. Even the judge chuckled at that one. Some of the people who once sided with the HOA have started to come around. The ones who once called me aggressive now wave from across the road. A few even asked me for copies of the legal filings Jenna used, just in case our HOA gets ideas. Funny how fast fear turns into solidarity when people realize the tyranny doesn't stop at their fences. The anti-HOA coalition now has chapters in 3 counties. They lobbied to introduce a homeowner protection ordinance to the city council, language that limits HOA jurisdiction to members only and criminalizes the use of surveillance or enforcement against non-members. It passed unanimously. Something about the word psychoacoustic aggression being quoted in the resolution made the whole thing feel like poetic justice. Last week, a young couple pulled into my driveway. They had a kid in the back seat, barely old enough to sit up. The husband rolled down his window and said, "You're Caleb, right?" I nodded. He smiled and said, "We bought the house down the slope, saw the video. We moved here because of you." I didn't know what to say. So I said, "Hope you brought a mower." They laughed. We talked about trees and soil and why the water bills in Flagstaff are insane. Then they left, and I stood there, looking down at the valley, the sun setting in that ridiculous orange fireball way it does out here, and I thought about how fast everything can shift. How one stupid, ordinary Saturday can turn into something you never planned for. The fence around my property now has a new sign. I had it custom made, not aggressive, not sarcastic, just honest. You're entering a lawn cared for in peace, not permission. Please respect the difference. People take photos of it now. The press calls stopped months ago. The checks have long cleared. But what remains is something harder to write down. The feeling of owning something no one can vote away, surveil, or fine into submission. It's not about the grass. It was never about the grass. It was about who gets to decide what peace looks like, and whose peace gets prioritized. Mine wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And every Saturday at 11 a.m., I still mow. Not because I have to, but because I can.